Hey, what's going on, guys? Today's video is going to be a short and sweet sort of hybrid service announcement slash discussion video based on the Monster Rancher 1 and 2 DX disc system replacement. I did bring in some backup for this video to explain what the disc system exactly is, and then afterwards we're going to talk about how this system is going to be replaced and what implications of said replacement could be. That said, make sure to sit back, relax, and let's dive right in. So if you didn't already know, the Monster Rancher games are being remastered or ported to the Nintendo Switch, iOS, and of course PC. With that said, the original games had this very interesting gimmick that allowed the player to insert any CD and have that CD create a monster for them to utilize in game. Now on that note, I am going to let my buddy Hipster Snek take over and talk about the nitty-gritty details of how some of the game's systems work. Take it away, man.
Hey everyone, happy to be helping out my buddy Ed with some insight into the Monster Rancher games. I talked a little bit about this in the past in my reviews and Snek's Guide to Monster Rancher, but here I'm going to get a little bit more technical and try to break it down without doubling the length of the video. No promises there. In Monster Rancher, all monsters as a species run on a two-part genome sequence. I'll use Dino as my example. He's freely available in the market and one you'll encounter fairly early in the game. A purebred dino, and the main instance of the species you could say, would just be named Dino, and his genome would be read as Dino/Dino. Main gene comes first, subbreed comes second. However, if he had a subtype from, say, the Suezo genome, his genome would be Dino/Suezo, and the species name would be Mustard. But he'd have a Dino's base body with Suezo's secondary characteristics, such as his yellow coloration. The details of this do change game to game, but these basic rules will apply across the board. The reverse also holds true in many cases, since Suezo Dino is also a legit genome as well. This would have a Suezo's body type but with dino traits, and the species would be known as Melon Suezo. That in mind, not every single main breed crosses with every other, just that most do. That's the general rule, but exceptions do apply. So, from that table of all available monsters, are monsters made? Think of the species as the nature or genetic part of the upbringing process, influencing some things like base stats, stat growth, and lifespan, with minor modifications on things like their loyalty gain and their general overall preferences. And now we need to get a little bit technical, so bear with me. On CDs, there is a band of data called the Q code. Essentially, it's the CD's table of contents. Monster Ranchers 1 and 2 read this particular band of data and run it through some algorithms that we still don't really understand to this day, and then it selects an appropriate species to generate alongside some variables. If you use the same disk over and over, it will always generate the same species with the exact same copy of attacks and stat layout. However, if you have two different disks that coincidentally make the same species, it will have different starting stats and starting attacks, as these factors are not determined by genetics, but by the circumstances of their generation. Put another way, some factors are hard-locked by race, and some are randomized, and others still will hinge on how you raise them. That's how nature and nurture are both accounted for. Oh right, before I forget, there are rare monsters in Monster Rancher games. These are monsters who have named genomes that look like species name /?. Only certain disks will generate them, and those were hand-selected by the regional techno teams. These critters are usually on the upper echelon of that species' power level, but they aren't always. All this taken into account, between Monster Ranchers 1 and 2, there are just over 400 possible monsters. This is a fact that the anime tried really hard to push in this kinda backwards, haha, Pokemon only has 150? Well, we have 400, when that's already kinda up for debate depending on how you look at it.
Thank you so much, Snek. By the way, go subscribe to him if you like retro and obscure gaming titles, because honestly, his channel is a hidden gem. Anyways, now that you have a brief understanding of how the system itself works, you might be wondering, how are they going to implement this in a 2021 release? Most computers don't even have disk drives, phones definitely don't, and the Switch has cartridges, but are you going to have to buy a Switch game every time you want to get a new monster? The answer, of course, is no. The way they have it planned is that the game is going to have some sort of audio library that it connects to. However, as Snek pointed out, each CD can have differing monsters, and even CDs with the same monster variant will have different stats. That said, this means that in order to gain the same level of diversity in terms of monsters, the game will have to have a massive audio pool, which leads me to a sort of mini theory I have regarding that. Now, firstly, let's read the exact statement courtesy of bleedingcool.com. The Monster series originally launched with a unique feature allowing players to use physical CDs to generate monsters in-game, with each CD having a unique ID that would spawn a different monster. This feature has been reworked in Monster Rancher 1 and 2 DX, allowing for players to search a database to find their desired CD and generate a monster from its data. Enjoy searching a vast database of songs from around the world and generating monsters based off some of your favorite music. So, two things. Firstly, we still don't know if this means that older CDs that yielded one result on the PS1 will have the same result if they are present in this library. For example, if you have, I don't know, Metallica, Ride the Lightning, and find that same album in this list, will it yield the same monster with the same results? I'm not 100% sure. And furthermore, there are going to be a lot of new albums as well, so we may have some new combinations that come out as a result of this. Back to what I was saying, having a game that could literally read any song album versus a database could limit possibilities when taking stats into consideration, unless that database can literally rival having every CD available. So depending on how this goes, it could end up stifling the amount of possibilities. Sure, there are a finite number of monsters, but there's an insane amount of stat combinations as well. This leads me to believe that they are going to utilize one of the already established databases of songs if they do want to keep that limitless amount of possibilities present, and in that case, my theory is that they may use iTunes as a resource. This is a very loose theory, but the game does for some reason have iOS listed and not Android, which I definitely find a little bit suspect. So I could see some sort of partnership asking for mobile exclusivity, but this could also just be a huge coincidence as well. Either way, I do think that from a logistical standpoint, having a database that you can access in-game is a lot more realistic in today's day and age as opposed to discs, but I will say that there is something magical about the prospect of digging through your parents' CD collection in order to potentially find a new monster. Either way, I'm definitely looking forward to the games coming to PC, and we'll definitely be providing lots of coverage for when it does come out, and we'll continue to keep you guys updated on any news as well. If you're not already subscribed to the channel, please consider doing so, as I cover the monster taming genre in depth every day. You can also check out my Twitter, Discord, and Patreon if you're interested as well. Also, don't forget to check out Snek's channel, which will be listed below. We actually did do a collab together quite some time back regarding Nexomon Extinction, which will also be linked in the description. Just want to say special thanks to all of our patrons, especially StealCase, and to everybody else who supports the channel just by watching and subscribing and sharing. Have a good day, everyone. Peace.